Good afternoon, students, and welcome to the second part of our discussion on human resource development issues. In the first part, the block one, we have understood what this human resource development is all about. We had a conceptual clarity of human resource development. We understood the basic HRD forum of the organizations. We have understood the HRD climate, and we have understood other aspects of HRD. In this block 2, we are going to discuss in the next level, like what are the requirements of this human resource development approach for the employees, for the managers. We'll see the concept of competency mapping and the importance of performance appraisal system, performance management system for implementing these HRD activities in the organization. So today we are going to discuss the different aspects of human resource development for the employees in the organization. So students, like we can understand that of late organizations have realized that human resource are the most important resources of the organization, and that is the reason why there was a transformation from the concept of resources to assets, and we talk these human beings as the assets of the organization. The reason being, organizations nowadays, they are passing through a stiff competitive stage. There's a huge competition going around there because of the opening of the global economy. They are not only competing with the local players, they are competing with the global giants. So unless and until they do have that competitive advantage, unless and until they win over that competition and survive, it will be very difficult for them to sustain on a long run. And that is the reason why organizations have realized that a better workplace, a better system, and a process by which the employees of the organization's productivity can be enhanced, if the process by which the ownership of the employees can be enhanced, we can really achieve that competitive advantage. So that is the reason why organizations have realized that human beings are the most important assets of the organization. But by the same, it is also a matter of fact to consider that these human resources are rare. These human resources are inimitable. These human resources are portable. So, if we to talk of the different approaches of dealing with human resources, we may talk of the soft variant model and the hard variant model, where the hard variant model says that human resources are plentifully available and we can use these human resources sparingly as we want. So, the concept of extracting maximum from the human resources, utilizing them to the fullest extent, concept of hire and fire. These are the things which may be the outcome of this hard variant model. But soft variant model says the human resources are the costliest resources of all other resources. So that is the reason why when we deal with human resources in the organization, we have to be careful. We have to have all those cautiousness to deal with human resources in the organization. Right? So we need to understand that if we lose this potential of the human resources in the organization, by any means we cannot achieve that competitive advantage. We need to understand the basic characteristics that human resources are rare. I may not have the exact substitute of the human resources what I do have. Maybe on a long run I can develop them, but I cannot find an exact and equitable replacement of the human resources. They cannot be imitated. That's the reason, that's the problem that we do have. And also, human resources are portable. So, as we discuss the concept of VUCA world, right? Maybe volatile, uncertain, and complex, ambiguity. It's only the human resources who can deal with all of these things in a strategic way and make the organization to accomplish its objectives. And that is the reason when I deal with human resources, I deal with the inherent resources available with the human beings in my organization. As such, we do talk of their knowledge, as such, we do talk of their skills, abilities, their attitude, and the competencies of different kinds, what we are going to discuss in sixth chapter. Competencies of various kinds which are required for the human resources to make the organization achieve its competitive advantage. So that is the reason why whenever we talk of this human resource development as a concept, we take a holistic approach of growth and development of the employees at large. Now, that can be understood from the concept itself, that can be understood from the different authors who have defined this human resource development in due course of time. And we can also see the changes in the perspectives of managing human beings, starting from the early years till the time that we witness at the present. Like Harvis and Meiser, they have defined the process of increasing the knowledge, skill, and capability of the people in the society. So way back, like maybe 70 years back, this definition was there. So the focus is on enhancement of knowledge, skills, and capabilities. That is what we have understood from the very beginning, that HRD is all about improving the competences among the people, commitment, and the culture of the organization at large. Right? So here the definition is all about enhancing the competences of the people. In earlier 1970s, HRD is a series of organized activities conducted with specified time and designed to produce behavioral change. So whenever we do talk of these competencies, look how this definition of competencies have evolved with the passage of time. Now, when we do talk of 1960s, where the competencies focuses mostly on knowledge, skill dimensions or the abilities of the people, but gradually there was a concept of behavioral competencies. So it's the competences of the people is not confined to technical competencies only. Competences of the people also focuses on behavioral dimensions, right? As such, leadership abilities, judgmental abilities, decision-making abilities, team-building abilities, all of those things, right? So organized activities, we can really enhance the behavioral competences of the people in the person. Jones, 1980s, HRD is a systematic expansion of people's work-related abilities and attaining these organizational and personal goals. So of late, it was realized that the business strategies and HR strategies, they are not separate. They should be taken hand in hand. They should go hand in hand. So one is not a supplement to the other, one is a complement to the other. Right? So when it was realized that business strategies and HR strategies go hand in hand, then the concept of competences were a bit modified, where we say is the competences required within the individual for not achieving the goals of the individual, but achieving the goals of the organization. So competencies which are to be developed within the individual are to be in line with the organization's goals, not only for the purpose of achieving or attaining the individual's goals. So gradually the dimensions of this term competencies, they do change, right? We do talk of Smith during the same time. Programs and activities, direct and indirect, instructional and individual, that positively affect the development of individual and productivity and the profit. So that is the thing what I was telling you, that during this 1980s, the concept was achievement of organization's goals. Concept was achievement of the productivity of the organization, achieving the profitability of the organization. And of late, when organizations have realized that no other resources than the human resources can be able to achieve that, so the thrust was given on the development of human resources in terms of their competencies, so that the ultimate productivity and profit of the organization can be achieved. So that was the thrust given that. Around 1991, you can see the strategic management of training, development, and management professional education interventions so that to achieve objective of the organization while at the same time ensuring full utilization of knowledge in detail and skill of individual employees. So that is the time, if you do remember, we had a transformation in terms of technology also from the manual processes to the automated processes, from manual processes to the application of CAM, CAD in the manufacturing processes. So of late, when organizations have adopted those changes in the technologies, they realize that the human resource utilization should be proper. Right. So we do talk of the organizations in terms of the strengths of the human resources as to ensure that there should not be wastage of human resources in the organization. So the organization should not be overpopulated with human resources, nor the organization should be underpopulated with the human resources. Either of these cases will not lead to productivity of the organization. So what we need to understand is the right number of manpower should be available to the organization as and when it is required. So some of the books, when defining this human resource planning process, they do say it's all about ensuring that right number of human resources at right time, right place. That's what I'm talking of. As a process of human resource development, we need to make the best possible utilization of the human resources. I'm not talking of maximum utilization. I'm not talking of minimum utilization or underutilization. I'm talking of the proper utilization of human resources. So human resources, if utilized to the proper extent, can reduce the cost of production. So if the way we can minimize the wastages in terms of human resources can add more value to the production process. That is why we need to think of accomplishing the strategic objectives of the organization by making the best possible utilization of knowledge and skills of the individual employees. So their resources must be utilized in a proper way. That is what we need to talk about. 2005, when we do talk of this HRD, the concept is both. It is required for the organization's role and the professional role that the individual to play. So here the HRD is to contribute both long-term strategic performances and more immediate performance improvement through ensuring these organizational members do have access to the resources for development of their capacities and performances, etc. So the perspectives have been further expanded. Here we do not focus on the short-term goals, short-term accomplishments of the organization only. We focus on the long-term accomplishments of the organization, long-term goals of the organization. So our effort should be more directed towards accomplishment of the visionary state of existence, the vision of the organization, rather than on the short-term goals like the objectives or maybe the quarterly target or the annual target of the organization. So we need to think of developing the individual competencies not only to accomplish the present day's demand, not only to accomplish the short-term goals of the organization, but our objective is to develop those competencies within the people whereby the people can really contribute on a long run to the organization. When each and every organization do have a question on sustainability. So can we achieve that stage of sustainability without having that competent human resources who contribute on a continuous basis, on a sustainable basis? That is what the thrust is. So human resource development is all about making the best possible utilization of human resources on a long run. So we need to develop their potentials, their efficiencies, their efficacies, right? In some, their competencies. to meet the present requirement, to meet the current performance standards of the organization, but at the same time, the focus should be on the long-term accomplishment of the organizations. Because, like, the application of that VUCA goal is always there. We don't know which kind of jobs are going to vanish in future, which kind of new jobs are going to emerge in future. So maybe whenever I do talk of preparing these human resources, I must prepare these human resources for the present day as well as for the future time to come. So maybe through the process of scenario building or Delphi techniques, when I do forecast the future requirements of human resources in my organization, I must develop those competencies within the individuals than what is like otherwise required for the organizations, right? We do talk of 2006, Werner and Decimo, they have defined that a set of systematic and planned activities design which provides this opportunity to learn and meet the current and future top demands of the organizations. So somehow rather, organizations have realized and have transformed their focus from the personal growth to the organizational growth through a systematic career planning process, through a systematic succession planning process. So the opportunity should be extended to the individual employees to learn. The opportunity should be extended to the individual employees to develop. By learning and developing themselves, they will not only move up in the organizational hierarchy, they will not only step towards the future of their career in the organization, but at the same time, they can contribute towards the organization's goals. If I don't make the individual employees to learn on a continuous basis, we say that learning is a lifelong process. No? So if the employees will not learn on a continuous basis and will not transform themselves as per the requirement, will they be able to cope in the future? Never ever. We have many instances in the past where you can think of, like the product services or even the human beings, right, with certain skills and knowledge, who were valued maximum by the organizations. They do not have a job. They do not have their existence now. Many such jobs are there. You can think of that. So if I'll not update myself, what I am going to do? What I'm going to do in future? That is what, right? So to meet the present job demands and to meet the future job demands, we need to think of the self-renewal ability. We need to think of the self-learning ability where we can learn on a continuous basis and we can come out with the same thing, right? So whenever we talk of the basic aspects of this human resource development, we can see that the entire development focuses on individual goals aligning with organizational goals by developing their competences of various kinds. Right? So here the process is how we should deliver this HRD in the organization itself, for the employees itself, right? So human resource development, the basic objective that we have understood is to develop the competencies within the individuals. Right? Competencies which can be of any kind, like it's all about what the people have developed within themselves from their childhood days, because of their experiences, because of their expertise, because of their education, because of their participation in various forums. So whatever they do, they have acquired certain knowledge, they have acquired certain skills, they have acquired certain abilities, capabilities, they have developed certain personalities of their own, they have certain attitude. All of these do form the competences of the people. That is what you need to understand. Yeah. So whenever we do want to deliver the basic HRD process for the employees of the organization, we need to start with the assessment of needs. Assessment of needs. This thing can be done by three ways. We are going to assess the needs of the individuals, assessing the needs of the jobs, assessing the needs of the organization at large. At the organizational level, I need to make an assessment considering all those external factors putting an impact on the organization. How do they actually making an impact on the organization? What sort of skill is actually required for the organization as a whole, as a resource? Do the organization have all those skills within themselves in terms of human resources, maybe in terms of other resources? But here we are focusing only on the human resources. So, do the organizations have the requisite number of manpower with requisite skill, knowledge, abilities, aptitudes, etc., etc., to cater to the needs of the organization, to cope with the requirements of the organization, to help the organization to transfer from one state to the other state? So these are the things what you need to take into consideration for organizations. We're talking of organizational level analysis. Second level, we need to talk of the job. We talk of the tasks that is carried out by the individual employees. So with the changes in the technology, with the changes in the science, right? There are many such changes that happens around the organizations in terms of its technology, in terms of the skills required to perform those jobs. So whether the individuals do have all the skills. Now, if the jobs do change their characteristics, can the individuals cope with those changed characteristics of the job? Are the individuals capable enough to do with that? So I need to make an assessment of the need for the job. And third level of need that I need to take into consideration is individual level. So individual level of needs are not only confined to enhancement of skill, knowledge, abilities of the individuals, but at the same time we do talk of various other behavioral competencies. Nowadays we do see many such aspects which do hamper a positive work environment at the place of work. We do see, the number of increasing drug abuse cases in the organizations, alcoholism cases in the organizations. We do see the increasing number of sexual harassment cases at the place of work. We do see the increasing number of absenteeism among the employees. So all these sort of things are actually making a negative impact, rather not making a positive impact, negative impact, right, for the organizations. Anyhow, I need to get rid of all those things. So that is the reason why these behavioral competences are also making a very important aspect of the organization and to talk about that. So whenever we do make an assessment of the organizations, of the jobs, tasks, or maybe of the individuals, from that we will be able to find out the gap, what actually is required for the organization, for the job, or for the individuals, and what actually is present with the individual human resources. And from that gap only, we can define the basic objectives of this HRD activities. What we would like to develop within the individuals. What are the competencies required to be developed within the individuals? Whether they do lack in terms of skill, knowledge, abilities, or they do lack in terms of behavioral competencies, They lack in terms of leadership abilities, team building abilities, interpersonal orientation. What? That has to be specified. And most of the time, you do see the organizations do come out with this is what that we'll discuss in competency mapping process, right? And organizations they do define their own HRD activities, systematic activities carrying out their HRD processes. Right? Sometimes they call it as a HRD calendar, training calendar, learning calendar. Right? Throughout the year, what are the aspects to be dealt with? How these competences can be developed? How these competences can be sustained within a longer time, for a longer period of time. That is what we need to understand. So after specifying the objectives of a particular program, like objectives can be driven in broad, objectives can be driven in specific for individual level of competency development. So there you need to develop, you need to work on developing a session plan or lesson plan. The competences can be developed, but question is how it can be developed. So a systematic step-by-step process of taking the individual competences from one level to the other is what is required for the individuals. So, the session plan is the most important aspect which defines, the step-by-step method of achieving or acquiring a particular objective. So here our objective is enhancing a particular level of competencies, right? So enhancing a particular level of skill or knowledge, whatever it may be. So how that knowledge can be developed, that is what a step-by-step method should be defined. We do talk of that as a session plan of acquiring that. We do talk of developing or acquiring the right kind of study material for that. Now, mostly the importance of study material cannot be ignored. Reason being, the training sessions can give you a boost, but unless and until you are supported with the study material, the retention of knowledge may not be there for a long term. The fundamental clarity can be given through the training program, but the enhancement of that knowledge can be done only through the study materials. So how do you develop those study materials? How do you acquire those study materials is one of the most important aspects of the HRD program. Right? So how, what can make the people to learn? The importance of that with examples and all those things, right? You need to think of making the study material more impactful. That is what we do. And in a process of enhancing the learning, the role of a trainer or the role of a leader is one of the most important aspects. What we need to understand is a trainer or a leader can be the role model for the employees of the organization. Can act as a role model. Now, if you talk of the concept of role modeling, people try to imitate. People try to imitate the behavior of those role models, right? So sometimes these trainers, these leaders do act as a role model. And if this role model will not have an impact on the people itself, the entire effort of delivering this training program or learning program will not be effective. So what we need to understand is whenever we are choosing a particular skill or the knowledge or the aptitude of the employees to be developed within themselves, we have to be highly cautious in terms of selecting the facilitator, selecting the trainer, leader, who is going to impact that, how people will perceive that, how do they take up, one of those things. That is what is an important thing. Selection of the right person to deliver right kind of training or developmental activities so that the skills of the people can be enhanced. We're talking of selecting the methods and the techniques of this programs to be delivered to the individuals, right? Methods means we do talk of this learning processes which can happen in two ways. One is on the job and one is off the job. I can have some of the methods whereby the employees can learn by having a hands-on experience at the place of work itself. Right? So, OJTs we do talk of, on-the-job training modules, right? We do talk of programmed instructions are some of the methods by which we can deliver that, right? Where people can do and learn. Of course, that's the best way of learning. But the only problem that we do have is that here there are high probabilities of causing damages to machines because they are new learners. So emphasis is given on the role of supervisors in the on-the-job training programs, on-the-job development programs. Right? So with proper mentoring, coaching, counseling of a supervisor, these people can learn. The other way around, we will talk of off-the-job methods. Okay, let the employees be trained on specific agenda, on specific dates, where the employees will be off duty, so they can learn, they can focus on the learning part of it. They can focus on the learning part of it. But there we need to also take certain other concepts into account. Like whenever we talk of imparting this, training programs or developmental programs, whatever it may be, we need to understand one thing: how do the people to respond to that? Means what? What is the learning ability of the person? What are the senses that helps the individuals to learn? As far as we can understand, right? Our visual nervous system sometimes do dominate. So once we see something, we can easily remember that. Sometimes our auditory systems are more dominant. So once we hear something, we can remember that. Sometimes if we practice something, we can remember that, right? So depends. So whenever we are imparting this training program, whatever it may be, like mostly it is not possible with online training programs, but like on-the-job training programs. But for off-the-job methods, selection of proper audio-visual aids, proper practice materials will help the individuals to learn and retain the skills within themselves. Learn and retain skills within themselves. That's what we need to take into consideration, right? So the right method with right tools and techniques can help the individuals to learn. And once we finalize all of those things, then we need to think of this scheduling the program itself, right? Program means how do we impart this training program? Whether this training program can be imparted all at a sudden, right? At once. Say, I do find out a particular training on the skills of the motor binders. So, if I do understand that this training program requires a week-long participation of the workers to adopt a new technology, new thing altogether, completely transforming themselves. So what I'm going to do is to plan for a continuous 1 week program, or I'll plan for a program with some intermittent breaks. Training programs which requires long-term retention of skills, knowledge, abilities should not be imparted all at a time. It will have no impact. Rather, the scheduled training programs with intermittent breaks can help the individuals to learn and retain skills. So any such training program which can really impart on a frequent basis can help the individuals to overcome that, right? So So once we finalize all of those things, then we deliver this HRD activities, right? So from these HRD activities, we may come across with the various evaluation parameters. Like we do have peak Petris evaluation. There are certain other evaluation methods are there. What we need to do is that whatever program that we design to develop the competencies of the workers, whether the program is able to achieve the said objectives or not, has to be evaluated. Then applying these evaluation methods, when I do evaluate that particular training program and end of the result, I interpret that. So if I have achieved the said objectives, that's okay. If I have not achieved the said objectives, where lies the problem? Maybe once again, I need to repeat the cycle with a proper need analysis, proper prioritizing the needs, and then following the methods once again. That is what is required for the organizations whenever we do talk of delivering this HRD mechanisms to boost the employees' productivity. So whenever we do talk of this HRD for workers, we said that HRD is all about developing competencies, commitment, and culture. So here, whenever we do talk of the HRD for workers, more or less our focus is on development of competencies of various types. So our prime objective is what? Development of occupational capabilities, abilities, occupational efficiency, occupational efficacies of the people itself, right? So whatever activities I'm doing, my objective is to ensure that people do perform at the place of work. At the same time, as I said, that human beings are not treated like economic beings. Unlike earlier days, we are taking human beings as social beings, as psychological beings, right? So they do have their own specific requirement, individualistic requirement. So that is why we need to develop certain intellectual abilities within the people. We need to talk of competence, like we need to talk of thus intellectual abilities, intellectual quotient of the people, right? We need to talk of the psychological development of the people itself. Like we are talking of their intellectual is more or less confined with the brain, the thought process, the cognitive process, cognition of the individuals. But whenever we talk of this psychological, it is brain or the cognition leading to behavior. Right? Cognition leading to behavior. So some or other, the perceptions of the people has to be developed, the personalities of the people has to be developed, the decision making process of individuals has to be developed. The interpersonal relationship, teams, inter-teams, all of those are related with the relationships and understanding of those relationships. That's a very psychological process. We're talking of social processes where we are talking of people dealing with their colleagues, maybe when they work in a particular department, maybe when they work in a particular team, or they deal with inter-teams. So that is what is a social. That aspect has to be developed. And when I talk of cultural aspects, it's all about how do they take the organizational processes, practices, policies, plans, rules, regulations together. So all of those things are to be developed within the individuals with a objective of higher level of achievement. Higher level of achievement. They need to produce more and achieve more to move up the organizational hierarchy. As simple as that. But here, one of the most important aspects that we need to take into consideration is what are the motives of the people that have to be understood in a proper way. We have to talk of the basic motives of people. If I do refer to Herzberg's two-factor theory, isn't that the satisfaction of needs is what that motivates the people? Yes, satisfaction of needs motivates the people. It's all about. We have understood that any such kind of need actually creates a tension among the people, and if the need is satisfied, then the people will be satisfied. They are motivated enough, right? Needs create tension, unstable behavior. So satisfaction of needs motivates the people. Let's say. But what sort of needs? Herzberg has clearly identified the needs to be understood in two different ways. One is a lower order need or a higher order need, right? The lower order needs, if these are not fulfilled, will provide level of dissatisfaction. But if provide, may not satisfy the people. So if I want my people to be motivated enough, that's why these lower order needs are called as, Heisenberg factors, whereas these higher order needs are called as motivators, right? So if these higher order needs are satisfied, then people will be motivated. So what actually can motivate people at the place of work? That has to be understood. And we to talk of self-managed skills. Self-managed skills, in a sense, I'm talking of the self-renewal abilities, self-management, self-learning, self-renewal, whereby I am open to new technologies, I am open to new skills, I'm open to innovations, I'm entrepreneurial activities. So that is what is required to be developed within the people. Right? So they need to be confident, they need to have their own initiations, they need to have their own entrepreneurial activities. That is what we need to understand. So the basic objective is that HRD should be a center of development, number one. Is all about taking the human resources as the object of development. So our focus should be the development of the people itself. Development of collective personalities, participation of the people, self-reliance. These are the basic aspects of the human resources that we need to take into consideration. So whenever we talk of these HRD activities for the workers itself, HRD activities for the workers, what we need to understand is, now HRD overall carries out certain things which are primary requirement of the organization, maybe for the job, as we have understood now. There may be certain requirements for the jobs, there may be certain requirements for the individuals, there may be certain requirements for the organization. So what sort of activities are being carried out by the individual, by the HRD as a department, as a vertical for the employees, are called as primary functions. But these primary functions are not the only functions which should be focused on. These functions must have subsidiary functions also, what we call it as secondary functions. So HRD thrust should be given on primary functions, but at the same time cannot overlook the secondary aspects of the job or individuals. So let us understand. So if I do talk of the basic functions, primary functions of the employees, HRD department for the employees. Now, HRD focuses on development of leadership within the individuals. Why does it happen that this leadership has to be developed within the individuals? Or basically, the focus is on development of supervisors. Now the objective is, unless and until certain skills like this supervisory skills, decision making abilities, leadership abilities are developed within the individuals, they cannot take up more responsible positions in the organization. So, it's a mandatory requirement for the employees to take up more challenges, to move in the career path of the organization, right? So, at one time, HRD, human resource development initiatives, focuses on enhancing the skill, knowledge, and abilities, aptitude of the people required for the present job, required for the future job, through the methods of training and development. So the basic aspects of the human resource development is with a thrust on training and development. Second, when we talk of this HRD, that should focus on individual employees in the organization. So we are talking of the career management and career development aspects of the organizations. So actually, not like earlier days where we have understood, not like earlier days. Nowadays, people or this HRD are more concerned for people, right? So whenever we do talk of the past, the initiatives of career growth or development was taken by the individual employee. But nowadays, the initiation is from the HRD department only, HRD vertical only. Because I know if the employees of the organization will not be happy, will not grow in their career, then perhaps they may leave my organization. Right? So that's the reason why you have to take that aspect into consideration. Unless and until I do talk of providing a career path to the individual employees, which is a sustainable one. So they may have many such career related issues. We'll see that. We do have a chapter on career planning. Let's say what sort of problems do they face and how should they overcome that. Okay? So whenever we do talk of this proper dimensions of HRD for individual growth and development, we must say that it should be career planning, succession planning, it should be career management, taking all those aspects into consideration. We are talking of third to the organization. Now, one of the primary objectives is to ensure that HRD strategy should comply with the organizational strategy, or based on the requirements of the organization, HR should provide or should be able to provide the requisite manpower to the organization. Beyond that, to talk of the organizational effectiveness is also a responsibility of the individual employee. We are talking of members' well-being, the psychological well-being, the sociological well-being, so as to say, creating a healthy, harmonious relationship at the place of work is what that the organizations want. The workplace should be valued by each and every employee of the organization. Right? We're talking of employees to have that. And moreover, HRD should be able to develop some change agents at the place of work. Change agents are the people who normally take the leadership during the time of any such change or any such turbulent situation. Like more or less, we do say that organizations nowadays they do have huge problems in their career stage, in their life stage itself, like embryonic phase, growth phase, maturity phase, declining phase. And whenever the organizations do pass through that declining phases, they adopt many such strategic level of change. So as to say, strategic level of change, so as to mergers, acquisitions, buybacks, takeovers, small business unit concepts, right? Disinvestments, acquisitions, all of those kind of things do happen. So who is going to lead? And we understand that any kind of change that brings uncomfortable situation are not welcomed by the people. So somehow someone has to take the lead to imbibe those kind of things, right? So that is what we say. Development of change agent. That is another responsibility of the HRD manager. Beyond this primary responsibilities of providing training, looking after the career growth options for the employees, looking after the organizational development, some other aspects like we understood that concept part. There has to be a proper match between the employee's role and the job role. So role analysis, development is another one. If you do remember, we have said that developing the employee in the role and developing the role of the employee, two things we discussed, right? Developing the role of the employee and developing the employee in the role, right? Developing the role of the job. All of these things are to be taken into consideration. So I want that there has to be a proper match between the employees of the organization with the job or role they are playing in the organization, and at the same time, the effectiveness should be there. Okay? For that, you need to have proper orientation programs. Nowadays, you to see employees, organizations are, making a huge expenditure in terms of their onboarding processes, in terms of, inducting the new employees into their system, in terms of orienting them, making them socialize, making them comfortable at the place of work, all of those things. Performance appraisals, of course, potential appraisals, okay. Now, that is what we'll see it in chapter 8 in detail, chapter 7 in detail, performance appraisal system and potential appraisal system, where the basic objective of appraisal is not to evaluate that particular employee for taking some personal decisions, but we nowadays carry out this appraisal systems to ensure that the employees do have requisite skill, knowledge, and abilities to meet the organization's goals. Okay? Counseling with increasing, complexities at the place of work, with increasing level of, uncertainties, ambiguities. People nowadays, they pass through a very hectic state of their mind. So that at times results in the lowering of the productivity of the employees. So whenever I do talk of the non-conformities or the lower productivity of the employees, what would be the reasons? Is it that only they lack in terms of skill, knowledge, abilities? Or it could be because of something else. It could be because of something else. Understand? Maybe it's personal problems, personal life problems, family issues, financial issues, property issues, legal issues, can be anything. Right? So I need to understand the root cause of non-conformity. Counseling is required. Right? We do talk of succession planning, participative versus like quality of work life is another one. When we do talk of this industrial relationship system, it's all together. We need to understand that in a common platform where these employers and employees do interact with one another. The platform should be a conducive one, isn't it? The platform should be based on harmony. The platform should be based on mutual acceptance, right? So we say that the relationship between employees and employees, employees and employer, employers and employer, which is there because of terms and conditions of employment, right? Terms and conditions of service, all of those things. Okay? So what is required is to what extent there can be a quality work life. It should be free from all such kind of problems. All such kind of problems. Right? Related to job, related to organization, related to welfare of the employees, related to various facilities. All of those things should be taken care. And we to talk of this role of HRIS, Human Resource Information System, which is one of its own kind, like device or a tool that can provide us, a complete autonomy to deal with all of those aspects of the individuals. So here we need to understand one thing, that we need to talk of the base aspects. Like we have understood that primary functions are there, peripheral or secondary functions are there. But whenever we talk of the basic functions of HRD for the employees, it can be summed up with this. So we have understood the importance of training. We have understood the importance of counseling that is required. Quality of work life, right? That is what we were discussing now, previous point. That's what the employee engagement should be there. How employees can be engaged. What are the things that we need to take into consideration for the engagement of the employees at the place of work, right? So if their quality of work life will not be improved, if they undergo through the phases of stress, they undergo through the different phases of mental pressure, we can say, right? So they are not in a state of equilibrium, if we talk, right? Where carrying out with their family problems, with their personal problems, with their professional problems, and not being able to create a balance between these three. So they will be intellectually unstable, which will hamper their work life. Right? So creating a work-life balance is very important. Quality of work life. So we can think of yogas. We can think of creating a conducive work environment, healthy work environment. We can think of all of those things can be there. Another one is we to talk of this grievance mechanism. As we understand that there is a shift from the human resource management concept from a personal administration to human resource management, right? We come out with a concept of shifting of collective bargaining to individual bargaining. Why do we talk of that? So here I'm not dealing with human resources as a cohort or as a group. I'm dealing with human resources as an individual. I understand that they do have their own sociological processes, psychological processes. So why not to deal with them individually? And that is the reason why whenever we're talking of this individual level of problems, that has to be dealt individually. Not like earlier days, where these individual problems becomes the mass problems. Individual problems are taken up by the trade unions and the entire organizational members are involved. We're not talking of that, right? So grievance mechanism has to be properly defined. The channel has to be defined. It should be made very easy and each and every employee must understand. It should be communicated with all of those aspects of the grievance mechanism. How and what are the way in which their grievances can be settled. Okay? We are talking of workers' welfare. Workers' welfare, in a sense, I'll produce a conducive work environment whereby all the workers will be comfortable at their place of work. Right? Whenever I'm talking of this welfare facilities, I'm talking of providing them housing facilities, transportation facilities, schooling facilities, facilities for health, so hospitals, dispensaries. Sometimes I provide them recreational facilities whereby employees can really contribute. Right? So if the concept is that if I have to talk of the workers, I should take care of this worker so that they can take care of me. We are talking of workers' participation in management. Of course, we have understood in the past how this authoritarian style of management converted to democratic or bureaucratic style of management. Then we are talking of participative style of management. So let the workers be treated as a stakeholder, a prime stakeholder of the organization, and let them be a part of the decision-making process of the organization. Involve the workers, because unlike earlier days, we are not dealing with workers who are not knowledgeable. We are dealing with workers who are knowledgeable. So they understand. They can be the stakeholder, prime stakeholder of the organization, right? So that is what we need to understand. And quality circles, of course, the role of the workers is not confined to accomplishment of goals, but the overall development of the organization. So we do talk of these quality circles being effectively created, utilized, took the responsibility of achieving the same objectives of the organization. So these are the important aspects that HRD as a tool takes care for the employees of the organization. And tomorrow we'll discuss how this HRD will uh, be required for managers for achieving the said objectives of the organization. So friends, let's end up over here. And once again, we'll meet tomorrow to discuss the other aspects of human resource development for the organizations. So thank you very much. Have a good day.